Picture this. You are at a crowded social gathering. The music is a little too loud. The chatter is overlapping, and you are standing there holding a drink, smiling. On the outside, you look completely engaged, vibrant even. But on the inside, the lights are starting to flicker. You feel this creeping, overwhelming exhaustion. You are physically standing there, but mentally, you have already left the building. We have all been there, right? We call it a drained social battery. We label ourselves as introverts, or we say we have social anxiety, or we just blame our own lack of stamina. We treat it like a personality trait. But what if we have been looking at this entirely wrong? What if that feeling of your social battery dying isn't a metaphor at all?
It is not a metaphor. It is a literal, measurable, biological reality. When you feel that sudden urge to withdraw from a conversation, you are not experiencing a personality flaw. You are experiencing a cellular energy crisis. Deep inside your brain, at a microscopic level, your power plants are struggling to keep up with the demand.
That is exactly what we are unpacking today. The idea that human connection, as beautiful and necessary as it is metabolically expensive. It is such a fascinating paradigm shift. We are moving away from psychology and diving straight into bioenergetics. So let us start with the engine itself. We know the brain is an energy monster, but how much power are we actually talking about here?
To put it in perspective, your brain makes up about 2% of your total body weight, yet it consumes roughly 20% of your body's resting energy. It is an absolute metabolic furnace, and that is just when you are sitting quietly. When you introduce social interaction into the mix, the energy demands skyrocket.
Because socializing isn't just one task. It feels natural to us, but computationally, it is massive.
Exactly. Think about what your brain is doing during a simple dinner party conversation. You are processing language, interpreting subtle shifts in tone, reading micro-expressions, regulating your own emotional responses, predicting what the other person is going to say, and constantly assessing the environment for social safety or threat. It is the neurological equivalent of running a dozen high-intensity applications on your smartphone all at once.
And we all know what happens to a smartphone when you do that. The battery percentage plummets and the device actually gets physically hot.
That is a brilliant analogy, because the biological equivalent of the phone getting hot is something we call oxidative stress. All of this immense cognitive processing requires fuel. That fuel is a molecule called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. It is the primary energy currency of your body, and it is produced by the mitochondria, the microscopic power plants inside your cells. Every single thought you have, every smile you fake, every word you process requires your mitochondria to generate ATP.
So when I am trapped in a conversation with someone who is incredibly draining, my mitochondria are essentially working overtime on the factory floor.
They are redlining, and just like a factory burning coal, generating all that energy produces waste. In the cells, these are oxidative byproducts. When you are in a highly demanding social environment, especially one that involves conflict, performance, pressure, or a lot of emotional masking, your mitochondria have to burn so much fuel that the oxidative stress begins to accumulate faster than your body can clear it.
And that is the heat. That is the heavy, foggy, exhausted feeling.
Precisely. The brain becomes energetically strained. The neurons literally struggle to sustain communication with one another. When ATP production can no longer keep up with the cognitive demand, your higher-order brain functions start to dial back. Your emotional regulation weakens. You become irritable. You lose your train of thought. You are experiencing cellular exhaustion inside your nervous system.
This completely reframes how we view human behavior. It makes me wonder about the classic divide between introverts and extroverts. For decades, we have defined this psychologically. Introverts lose energy in crowds, extroverts gain it. But listening to you, it sounds like we should be looking at nervous system sensitivity and mitochondrial efficiency instead.
That is a deeply compelling area of emerging research. Why does one person thrive at a 3-hour networking event while another person hits a wall after 45 minutes? It is very likely tied to bioenergetic resilience. Some nervous systems are simply wired to take in more sensory and social data. If your brain is picking up on every single micro-expression and tone shift in a room, your computational load is much higher. Therefore, your ATP burn rate is much higher.
It is like driving a sports car versus a hybrid. The sports car might be incredibly hyper aware and high performing, but it is going to run out of gas a lot faster.
Yes. And when it runs out of gas, it needs to be parked in the garage. This perfectly explains the biological need for solitude. When people say, "I just need to go be by myself and recharge," they are articulating a literal physiological requirement. Solitude reduces the sensory load. It stops the constant threat prediction and emotional regulation. It gives the mitochondria a chance to catch up, restore the ATP balance, and clear out those oxidative byproducts.
That is incredibly validating. So many people feel guilty for needing to leave a party early or for wanting to spend a Sunday entirely alone. Society often stigmatizes that as being antisocial or fragile, but it is not a weakness. It is just basic biological maintenance.
It is no different than a runner needing to rest after a marathon to clear lactic acid from their muscles. We easily accept that physical endurance has limits based on cellular energy. We just need to apply that exact same logic to cognitive and emotional endurance.
I want to pull the lens back a bit and look at the world we are currently living in, because this feels incredibly relevant to the modern epidemic of burnout. If our social battery is entirely dependent on mitochondrial health, then we have a massive problem. We are living in an era that seems perfectly designed to destroy our cellular energy.
You are absolutely right. The evolutionary mismatch is staggering. The human nervous system evolved to handle social interactions within small, predictable tribal groups. You knew everyone, the social hierarchy was clear, and interactions were interspersed with long periods of quiet, physical labor or rest.
And
Now, you wake up and immediately check a device that connects you to the thoughts, demands, and crises of thousands of people. You commute through crowded cities. You work in open-plan offices where your brain is constantly processing peripheral conversations and movement. You manage emails, instant messages, and video calls simultaneously. Your social brain is never allowed to power down.
we are running a marathon at a sprint pace every single day.
And we are doing it while actively compromising the very system that produces our energy. This is where lifestyle intersects with social capacity. Mitochondrial function doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is heavily dependent on how you treat your body. If you are chronically sleep deprived, consuming a poor diet, and living in a state of chronic stress, your mitochondria cannot produce optimal levels of ATP.
So a bad night of sleep doesn't just make you physically tired. It literally robs you of the cellular energy required to be empathetic, patient, or socially engaged the next day.
Completely. When your ATP levels are compromised from poor sleep or metabolic dysfunction, your brain starts triaging energy. It prioritizes basic survival functions over luxury functions. And unfortunately, high-level social engagement, patience, and emotional masking are biological luxuries. When you snap at a coworker or feel overwhelmed by a simple text message, it is often just your biology waving a white flag. Many people interpret this as a psychological failing, but it is actually bioenergetic dysfunction.
That is such a profound way to look at human relationships. It breeds a lot of empathy, doesn't it? When someone cancels plans at the last minute, or when a partner is unusually quiet after a long day at work, our default is usually to take it personally. We think, they don't want to be around me. But maybe the reality is just, their mitochondria are currently unable to fund this interaction.
That is exactly it. Energy metabolism shapes emotional capacity. You cannot separate the two. If we start viewing social interactions as energetic transactions, it changes everything. We become more forgiving of ourselves and others.
It also brings up a really interesting philosophical question about the cost of our highly connected society. If every interaction drains a bit of this precious cellular battery, are we spreading ourselves too thin? We have thousands of virtual friends and constant digital communication, but are we biologically equipped to care about that many people?
The biology suggests we are not. There is a concept known as Dunbar's number, which posits that humans can only maintain about 150 stable social relationships. When we force our nervous systems to process the lives, opinions, and traumas of thousands of people online, we are siphoning ATP away from our immediate, real-world connections. We are spending our cellular energy on a global scale, leaving very little for our families, our close friends, and ourselves.
It is like we are constantly paying a microscopic energy tax on every notification we receive. Over time, that tax bankrupts us.
Which is why the future of health and medicine is going to have to address this. We are already seeing the beginning of it with wearable technology. Right now, people use smartwatches and rings to track their physical recovery, their heart rate variability, and their sleep cycles.
I check my sleep score every morning like it is the morning news.
Exactly. But the next frontier is understanding how those metrics correlate with cognitive and emotional endurance. In the near future, we won't just look at our devices to see if we are ready for a hard workout. We will look at our bioenergetic data to see if we are biologically equipped for a difficult conversation, a major presentation, or a crowded social event. We will start managing our emotional energy with the same precision that elite athletes manage their physical energy.
That is a wild concept. Imagine checking your watch and it says, your mitochondrial efficiency is at 40% today. Avoid high conflict meetings and large gatherings. It sounds like science fiction, but based on what you are saying, the biology is already there. We just need the interpretation.
The biology has always been there. We are just finally developing the vocabulary and the technology to understand it. For centuries, we have separated the mind and the body. We thought emotions and social behaviors lived in this ethereal, psychological realm, completely detached from our physical cells. But the truth is, the mind is physical. Human connection is metabolic.
It really strips away the guilt, doesn't it? It takes this abstract, heavy burden of, I should be more outgoing, or I should be able to handle this, and grounds it in pure, objective biology.
It does. It allows you to respect your limits. When your body tells you it is tired, it is not a suggestion, it is a biological mandate. Your cells are asking for the time and space to rebuild the energy you need to engage with the world again.
I think that is the perfect thought to leave our listeners with today. The next time you're at a party or staring at a screen full of faces on a video call and you feel that sudden heavy drop in your social battery, don't judge yourself. Don't force it. Just remember the microscopic power plants working tirelessly inside your brain.
Because every conversation, every emotional interaction, and every human connection depends on them. Sometimes, the exhausted mind is simply an exhausted biology asking for recovery.
Your social battery was never imaginary, it was always cellular.